Welcome to another episode of the brand called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a well-respected coach and an author from the UK, Mr. Tim Brownson. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Ashutosh. It's great to be here.
Thank you. Tim is the founder of the Fully Booked Coach. He's also an author of a book titled The Clarity Method. So, Tim, you left a lucrative corporate sales job in 2005 to become a life coach. What made you take this leap?
I was just so stressed. Anybody that's worked in sales knows the more successful you are in sales, the more stress they give you, the higher targets they give you. And I'd done it for a long time, 20 years, but 10 years corporate. And I went to do some coach training, really just to work on myself, to become better at managing myself and managing the people underneath me. I just thought, this is what I want to do. And we were looking to move to the US. I just thought, I cannot go to the US and work in sales. At least I get 5 weeks vacation in the UK. In the US, I'd be lucky if I got a week. That was it. So I just kind of literally walked out of my job with no plan, nothing in place.
Amazing. You also mentioned that you spent almost a year by your Orlando pool waiting for clients. Yes. What did that experience teach you about mindset and marketing?
Yeah, it's funny because I'd never worked for myself. I did own a record shop for a while, but I think I was laboring under the illusion that if I was good enough, people would find me. So I spent a lot of money. I spent about $20,000 on various trainings, and thinking, okay, well, I'm a good coach. Why aren't people beating a path to my door? But what it taught me about marketing specifically is it really doesn't matter. There's a few industry, sport, maybe if you're the best cricketer, you will rise to the top. Nobody will stop you. But if you're the best coach, you could have no clients if you don't understand marketing. So that was a slow realization as I sat there. It was nice. And my wife thought I was treating it a bit like a vacation. So
interesting. And what was the moment you realized you needed to master online marketing to survive in coaching?
It was when she came home from work one night and I was sat by the pool. I got the dog at my feet. I was reading a book and it was like, I don't know, 5 p.m., something like that. And she looked at me and the dog and the pool and she said, "You're not on." And then she used a word which I won't use now, an expletive, "You're not on holiday, And then walked in. I suddenly sat there and thought, we got some savings, but I was rapidly going through them, So at that point, I just thought, okay, well, I need to figure out what's going on here. And that was the starting point.
Let's talk about the Fully Booked Coach now. What inspired you to start the Fully Booked Coach? And what gap were you aiming to fill?
Okay, so I started as a life coach in 2005, and then we moved to Orlando in 2006. And then, so as I got better at marketing, my profile started to rise. And at one point, I was getting like 1,500 unique visitors a day to my website. I got 12,000 people on my list, and I was on a lot of. Back in the day, it was more guest posted on blogs than podcasts. I think podcasts have taken those. So I started around about 2011, I'd say. I started having other coaches coming to me saying, "Can you help me do what you've done?" And I loved it. I really enjoyed it. So it kind of happened very organically. And it morphed from a daring adventure, my coaching business, into the Fully Booked Coach between about 2011 and 2013. And that's what I've done since. So I've been working with coaches for about 12, 13 years now. So it's one of these new people that's dived into the industry.
Amazing. What are some of the common myths about building a coaching business that you constantly debunk?
Well, I think the biggest one is the one that I said, that if I'm a good enough coach, people will find me. And the other thing as well, and this is something that I found difficult, and people will know me, recognize, but a lot of people, because of my public persona, don't recognize. I actually find it very difficult to self-promote. I am very poor at self-promoting, and you have to do it.
Mm.
So I don't like being photographed. I'm not keen on it, but I will still use selfies for me on LinkedIn and Facebook, and to a lesser extent Reddit, because they work and they stop people, and we're in the connection
Yeah.
business. We connect to human beings.
Mm.
I think that's it. You can't sit there and just be a good coach. You've got to get in front of people. And you've interviewed hundreds, if not thousands, of successful business people. They're
Mm.
all there, aren't they? They're all pushing. They're all in the
Correct.
limelight. People can find them.
Well said. You worked with over 500 coaches.
Mm.
What are some of the top mistakes they tend to make when trying to get clients?
Well, I think the first thing is, so I would say 60, 70% of coaches, maybe even higher than that come to me, have got a website, but they haven't got a client avatar. They don't
Mm.
understand the client avatar. And so how can you write copy if you don't know what your client avatar? If you haven't got a
Mm.
niche, how can you write copy?
Yeah.
So I think they get the foundational stuff wrong. It's like, let's put up a flash website and guess what? It looks nice, but it's never going to convert because it's not
Mm.
speaking to specific problems that people have
Mm.
got. So
Mm.
I think if you start from that problem, it's very difficult to get anything right. It's
Yeah.
like, you know what, we're going to build this house on a swamp. Let me stop you there. Don't build it on the swamp because it doesn't matter how good the house is, it's still built
Mm.
on a swamp. So I think that's
Right.
the
Right.
the
Well
biggest.
said. Well said. And what marketing strategies do you believe every coach should master, regardless of the niche that they are in?
I think that's a really good question. So, what should they all master? Well, I think they should understand basic, and I want to say funnels, but I'm talking it in the broadest term now, not necessarily a digital funnel. The
Mm.
understanding of where people are in their journey to
Mm.
coming to hire. So, is somebody top of funnel? Do they just know about you, not sure what you can do? So, having a conversation with them is different to somebody that's been on your newsletter list for 5 years and fully understands what you're doing. So understanding the client, where the clients are on the journey, and understanding how to give value. Basically, too many coaches are scared of giving too much away because, oh, if I give it away, nobody will want to hire me. Yes, they
Mm.
will. They'll start to see you as the expert and they'll want to hire you even more. And I
Mm.
think again, that's another fundamental error I
Mm.
see.
And can you give me an example of someone you've helped to actually craft a marketing strategy?
Yeah, I mean, probably one of the. In fact, she's just rehired me. Somebody called Alice Graves. She's a British. She works in the career coaching, and she lives in the Netherlands. And Alice came to me, and she got a massive personality and very likable, but really not any clue to what she was doing. And I
Mm.
worked for her for a couple of years, and she went away, and I worked, and she's just rehired me again. We're just starting again to do some other stuff to scale the business. She's now got two people working with her, and she's doing phenomenally well because she's not afraid. She got a client avatar down. She's not afraid to outreach and to put herself out there and
Mm.
to talk to people. That's another thing I should touch as well. People, you've got to tell everybody what you
Mm.
do.
Yeah.
I once got two clients. I mean, they were from the same person on a plane by using hypnotherapy to calm down a woman who
Mm.
was freaking out, flying from Tampa to Denver.
Hmm.
You never know where your next client's
Yeah.
coming from. So just talk to
Mm.
everybody. If they don't become a client or don't know anybody, you don't be
Correct.
pushy. Fine, you've
Correct.
just nice conversation and got on with your day, and that's it.
Mm. Fascinating. How has the rise of AI changed the game for coaches trying to stand out?
Oh, massively. I mean, I'm a massive fan of AI. I'm spending 2 or 3 hours a day on it and learning it. I think now, so I mentioned guest blogging before back in the day, the mid 2000, early 2010s. You
Mm.
could stand out just by creating a lot of content. So I was relentless. I was writing a blog post every day, either for my own blog or as guest post. So you can't do that. That's not going to get you to stand out now because I
Mm.
can go and write 100 guest posts this afternoon if I wanted to.
Yeah.
So I think it's repositioned. So it's content like this. I think it's podcast things where there's real human connection. You've got to be
Mm.
prepared to have human connections and also coaches have got to be more vulnerable. They've got to get the position and the messaging right. They've got to bring their personality to the fore all the time, because if they don't, nobody wants vanilla anymore, because they're just
Right.
going to see it AI, and who wants AI? Some research where when people knew they were shown two paintings and asked which they preferred, and more often than not, they preferred one that was AI. But when they were told it was AI, they kind of like backtracked, like, oh, they didn't want it then. So if people are starting to think your content's AI, they're not going to hire you.
Amazing. One more question relating to coaching and then to your book. If a new coach had to focus on just one thing in their first 6 months, what would you recommend?
Well, I think if they did one thing, it would be the client avatar. Now, it wouldn't take them 6 months, I think, but get that right, really understand, get onto Amazon, read the books that your ideal client would read, go into subreddits on Reddit and look, what are the questions people are asking, go into groups on Facebook, just understand the marketplace before you go diving in there, putting up a website or telling people you're a coach.
Interesting. Let's talk about your book, The Clarity Method. Tell me about your book and what was the hypothesis when you wrote your book?
Well, I originally wrote it back in 2011. It was called Aligning with Your Core Values. And so basically, as a life coach, and even now as more of a marketing coach, core values underpin everything we do. So if we understand somebody's core values, they're the things that, for the most part, people won't compromise. And we get to understand our clients a lot better, but they also get to understand themselves a bit better. When we're clear on our values, it makes decision making a lot easier, because we can say, we don't take that job like I did in sales because it was well paid, when it went directly against my core values. Now, as the clarity method, I use it with coaches to help them understand their values for their messaging, because if your values come into your messaging, then you're going to attract people similar to you. There's going to be that rapport instantly. So people bond with people with similar values. You see it, whether they're cultural values or where they live, or whether societal values or values that they've acquired through parents, etc. So it's probably the most important work I do, even now. And I thought it wasn't as important when I got into marketing, but then, like I say, with the messaging, and even sometimes it is important.
So, for my understanding and for my viewers and listeners, can you help me understand a little more about core values? How do you ensure, or how does a coach ensure their core values match those of their potential coachees? What are some of the things that are needed to position a coach well in a market?
Well, okay, so I'll take myself as an example, because it's the easiest example. So core value can be everything. It can be peace, it can be family, it can be integrity. These are sort of things, the things that make us up as a person. So for me, integrity is important. So I've literally written a post this morning ripping the ICF, the International Coach Federation, for their latest report, because I don't think it's fully truthful. So my part of my brand is my honesty, even if that, not even when I have consult calls and I will tell a client I don't think they're right, and I don't think they're going to make it in coaching. If I genuinely think that, I'm not going to take the money off it. So that feeds into my messaging that I have to be honest. Call me out if you think I'm lacking integrity. But also, I've got a value of connection. I want to connect with people. So I've got communities that I build. So there's complete consistency. Nobody, and this is a challenge to anybody that watches this and knows me, nobody will say I'm different when they meet me in person to when they see me online. That's me. So I think it's an overused word, authenticity, and it's become almost a cliche. But again, I think it's so important that we let our values speak. But there's also something called anti-values, which is a process I'm not even sure where I came up with it, which is the things that we're not prepared to prepare. So things like violence or aggression or poverty or these sort of things, they're the things that we push back. And when we know what those are of a person, we know what's going to motivate them, what's going to drive.
Great response. What are some unexpected discoveries coaches have made using your clarity method?
Wow. Well, I know this was a bad idea. So, because it says in the book, don't do it with partners. And I actually got an email from a woman. This is a few years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago now. And she basically said, Tim, I know it said in the book that I shouldn't do it with my partner, but oh, here we go. And she did it with a partner and they had a massive row because your values aren't going to be, totally aligned with people. If I'd never do it with my wife, we're going to have the underlying essence is going to be the same. But for there's going to be little subtle differences, and it's very easy to look at somebody's values and say, well, that doesn't make sense. I could rip your values, but you could do the same with mine because they don't make logical sense. They're a lot more nebulous than that. So be careful how you use the process. Definitely.
Well said. In an AI saturated world, how does clarity become a coach's competitive edge? And I know I asked you this question a little earlier as well, but that was a little different.
Yeah, well, I think like I said, with myself, that knowing my values, the integrity, I think I stand out because I'm honest. So I do this isn't right for everybody, and I say this all the time. So values sort of create a little bit of my positioning as well, because I'll talk about politics because I lived in the US, I moved back to the UK, a lot of turmoil in the world at the moment. So I talk about that and social issues. So that positions me as that rules out half the population immediately. And that's fine. You can't do that if you're a big brand. You couldn't do that if you're Starbucks or Nike. You have to be careful how you tread that ground. But for me, it allows me to position myself away from anybody else. Say, look, I am prepared to talk about these issues. So I think there's that. And then with the messaging is what I said before about the consistency, always just being yourself and being honest and sticking to your values. So if family is super important to you, then you shouldn't be working at midnight, well, maybe at midnight because maybe your kids are going to whatever. But you know what I mean? Having that consistency. Don't say one thing and then people see there's something going on.
Correct. Well said. I have time for 2 more questions for you. You mentioned that the clarity method helps cut through fluff.
Yeah.
Can you share an example of how?
Well, I think you're putting me on the spot now, aren't you? So how can I think of an example of it cutting through fluff? I think it's really getting to the nub of what somebody wants. So I don't know if this really answers the question, but so people will often come with goals. Now, I think goals can often be seen as fluff because if goals aren't underpinned by values, let's suppose you've got a goal to win an Olympic gold medal and you're going to have to put 8 years of training into that. And let's suppose you're a swimmer. You're getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, you're going swimming and doing your stuff and your exercise and you do it. And then just before the Olympics, you do a disc in your neck and you can't go to the Olympics. Now, if all that wasn't it sort of in alignment with your values before, it's going to ruin your life because you've just wasted 8 years. So the gold medal is really the fluff. It's what took you to that, all that effort, which it should always be underpinned by your values. I'm not sure if I've got away with it.
No, but you've given me some ideas. Thank you. And my last question for you, Tim. What's your vision for the future of the clarity method? Any updates, tools, or evolution in the works?
Yeah, I've started to rewrite it because at the moment it's really just for coaches and just for managers, people, or individuals. It really hasn't got much in it about marketing. So I have started to write it, and you didn't even know that. So that's kind of interesting. Yes, I have started to rewrite it to get the market to help coaches understand how it can be brought into their messaging, the branding, etc.
And on that note, I just want to say, Tim, What a fascinating conversation this has been with you. Thank you for talking to me about your incredible journey. I loved your story about how sitting by the poolside, you suddenly realized how important marketing was for coaches, and it's so, so true. Thank you for talking to me about the Fully Booked Coach and all the work that you're doing to help so many coaches around the world. Thank you also for speaking to me about your book, The Clarity Method. Thank you again, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.